And welcome to my beginner course for Ableton Live 9 for the absolute beginner. Been wanting to do this for a while. My channel has been, the copyright strike has been taken away, so I'm in good standing now, so I can do long ass videos. And with the release of Ableton 9, it's very solid. And it's kind of the same as the one I did for Ableton 8, but I have a better mic now, and I want to go into more detail, and I'm slightly better spoken, and overall it's going to be a fun time. So, without further ado, as my goal is to compete with a lot of these paid schools, Thug Life, we're going to start. So I guess, yeah, Ableton is a DAW, or digital audio workstation. It's basically a program for making music. Basically what a program for making music does, or what it should do, is record audio, record MIDI, handle virtual audio instruments. They're basically extensions, effects, and it should export wave audio, and it should play things in a linear way, and it should be fun as well. This class tutorial course is geared for people coming from FL Studio, people coming from Cubase, or people that have no idea what's going on, and I'll go through it. And so don't let my default kind of template scare you. Ableton is really good at routing audio, and it's really good. It works well with outboard kind of gear like the Virus TI, the Native Instruments machine, and like other MIDI gear. It can send and return audio. It can do all sorts of fun stuff. It's very positive, I think. It's really good. So what I'll do is I'll just delete all these. I can always get them back when I reopen my template. When I hit new, I cut it, and I'll just leave that. So typically when you open Ableton, you'll have something like this, or this, and a MIDI track. Yeah, we'll do that. You have this and a MIDI track, and you'll be like, okay, well, what do I do? It's kind of confusing, but not really. Ableton works like any other creative kind of program, like down the line. It works really kind of like that. You got your file menu up top here for saving, opening, quitting. You're exporting right here. You can create, and you have all your options and stuff like that, but what I want you to do is go to preferences right away. So what do you have here? So you have your look and your feel. Generally I have my brightness up to 150, just because I can kind of see it better, because I'm looking at my screen upwards at an angle, and it's kind of good for the eyes when there's like less of a, when there's a kind of a higher contrast. But keep your monitor setting low, and don't add weird colors like that, because that'll mess up your eyes. It doesn't look neat. What you want to do is allow multiple plugin windows, but if you're kind of an organization kind of guy, you can hide them. And what else to do? You'll go to audio. This is kind of important. Depending on your interface, or depending if you're using your onboard audio from the back of your computer, or if you have a Complete Audio 6 or some other sound card, Fireface, whatever. If you have a Motu that doesn't work like I do, tragedy. What you want to do is if you have an interface, get the latest drivers. Use ASIO. You're good to go. If you're on a Mac, use Core Audio. You can kind of skip this step. It's one of the only good things about producing on a Mac. So what you want to do, you'll select, your audio device, ASIO. You're good. If you have kind of outboard instruments, input configuration, yada yada yada. If you have your speakers or headphones hooked up to the back of the computer, you want to go to a particular website and download ASIO for All. ASIO for All. Type that into Google. You get a very, very low latency driver that basically works for everything. And low latency means if you press a key, sound happens, right? There's always kind of a lag with computers inherently. There's no such thing as zero latency. It's kind of like online gaming when there's lag. It's kind of, if you have like vertical sync on and your graphics card is not powerful enough or not fast enough, you move the mouse and then it moves slightly after. That's basically that. It doesn't really affect audio just playing, but if you have a keyboard in front of you and you hit a key, there's a delay, and you don't want that. So ASIO for All minimizes that if you're using the back of the computer with headphones or whatever. Core Audio doesn't really have that problem. I have a Mac too, but I use Windows predominantly. If you have your interface, you won't be able to adjust the buffer size. You're going to want to go into hardware setup and kind of do this for the sake of stability. I have a higher sample rate. You can go all the way to a sample is like a unit. It processes sound in chunks and then sends them out to your interface to be processed or whatnot. So like the bigger the chunks, the less strain on the bus or computer, basically. So that's that. Consult your documentation to find the optimal kind of performance for your audio card or interface you have directly in front of you. If you are using the back of the computer, what you want to do is select ASIO for All as the driver type. Very important. I guess it would be your default device, sound device. Then you're gonna want to go to buffer size, and then turn that on. Give this a try, and then you turn on your test tone, kind of loud, and then you turn your CPU usage up. You see the CPU maxing up there. So what that does is it simulates a high load for your audio card, your onboard audio, and it tries to break it in a way. And you'll get dropouts, you'll get crackles if the sample rate's too low. So if you get crackles, if it's not a complete sine wave and you get crackles, you've probably heard that, you want to up the sample rate, right? And then give that a try, and then up the sample rate until you get no crackles. And then that is basically your optimum sample buffer size. And that's simple, really. And that's basically audio, and that's kind of an important step. You'll be a lot less frustrated. It's best to have stability over latency. And that's always good to have stability. Especially when you have a large project file, you don't want it crackling. And if it is crackling, stop all audio, and then go into this option menu and increase the sample size, the buffer size, and you're good to go. So right now my latency is 9 milliseconds, which isn't too impressive, but I record with Virus, and I record kind of whatever, so I want a stable buffer size, and I'll trade off a bit of latency for that. You can always go in and move the MIDI clips around. MIDI sync, anything you have like MIDI, if you got a MIDI thing, or like Machine or Virus, whatever, you want Ableton to kind of track that, so if you kind of move something, or that light in the upper right hand corner, I'm moving my pitch wheel. It's detecting the MIDI movements. And what MIDI movements is, MIDI is data that is sent through kind of a knob or a pad. It's a value between 1 and 127. And Ableton, when it's tracking it, it'll detect a movement in this. So for like a keyboard, it would say key 28 and 29, on and then off. Like on off, the velocity, something called aftertouch, sends all this data just by pressing one key, and that's Ableton receives that and sends that. And MIDI is a standard that's basically 30 years old, so older than me. The easiest way for synths to talk to each other. And I don't know, anything has one on the back. If you have another tab open Google, type in MIDI, and you'll see the port. It's basically a gigantic port that, with a bunch of tiny things, and it looks like it was made in the 80s, and it's still the standard to today. Also, MIDI is no longer through MIDI cables. MIDI is through your USB. I don't have a USB cable to show you right now, but if you have Google open, Google USB, and MIDI can be sent through that as well. And I have MIDI from Machine, MIDI from my MIDI keyboard over here, and that does the same thing. It's still MIDI, it's still the MIDI standard, but it's sent over USB, which is more convenient and more stable in a way, and you don't get kind of like drift or your clock going weird, which sucks. File folder. Basically, you want to leave all this as is. Installing VSTs. If you have VSTs, say it's like massive or whatever or whatnot, you browse in the folder. So let's see, program file. You install them all in the same folder, and basically they're .dll, and they're extensions. And what those extensions do are they're just an external synthesizer that's not part of the host. That Ableton did not have anything to do with, but it loads it just fine. And it can be an instrument effect or a MIDI effect. And you use your custom folder, and that appears right here, right? So all my plugins, hooray! And that is it for that. We're not going to be going over Max. I'm not a fan of Max as of yet. And saving your template. Once you become more advanced, you can want to have a template that you open up, and it's easier to get to work right away instead of creating tracks and dropping in EQs. My template is rather large, pretty much. That has nothing to do with anything. That's fine. Yeah, you're gonna want to keep it as is. Yeah, multi-processor. I'm not gonna click on that. You'll see my serial probably. So you have all that, and that is your options, and it's very important. I'm gonna be back with the interface.